Okay, good evening, guys. Whenever someone comes on, I'm actually about to make some homemade biscuits a different way than what I normally make them, using all-purpose flour. You know, there's a big difference in all-purpose flour versus self-rising flour. So I'm going to try the gold medal today, meaning that it's not going to rise unless I use baking powder in the flour. I've already put 2 overfilled cups of all-purpose flour into this bowl. Okay, and I'll be using your Clabby Girl baking powder, double acting, and I'm going to use 3 heaping tablespoons of this double acting baking powder to ensure that that plain flour rises. So, and we're gonna see. Actually, I've never actually made biscuits. It's been a long time ago using plain flour. You know, it's so much easier to just make biscuits using self-rising flour. So, and if you don't use these per cup, there's 1 heaping tablespoon, and there's 2 heaping tablespoons of the baking powder. And I'll come back just a little bit more, which I'm gonna see if I overdid it when the biscuits cook. But if you don't use enough per cup of all-purpose flour, your biscuits are gonna be flat, or anything else you cook, it's gonna be flat. So we're gonna see. It's just a test run. Hello, Lincoln and Storm Roberts. Brittany, how are you guys doing this evening? I believe I've seen you guys' name before, but if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please subscribe to Gigi's Threefold Harvest. Or if you don't care to watch me make biscuits, you can go on my channel and look at more of my videos. Okay? So normally I shred a stick of butter, 1 stick, or if I'm making a lot of biscuits, a stick and a half to 2 sticks of real butter. But today I'm going to use margarine. You can also use shortening, any type of shortening you want to use. Use that. You see that? Normally I have to grate up the frozen butter. Yes, so just hold tight. And I'm going to see what they're going to turn out to be. The oven is actually heating at 475. I wouldn't normally cook biscuits this time of day, but it's just something I wanted to test to see how this works. You've probably seen many people make biscuits on social media, and some of them stick their hands in the gooey batter. I prefer not doing that. You actually see, I'm going to stick my hands in it now to crumble up the butter, the margarine. This is margarine. Actually, you can make biscuits without using any type of shortening or oil or vegetable oil. You don't have to use anything except milk. Any kind of milk. I'll actually be using buttermilk, but you can use any kind of milk. Back in the day when my mom made biscuits, she just used old-fashioned canned carnation milk. And so you can use any kind of milk. You can use powdered milk. You can make your biscuits out of water. You see what I'm doing here? So I'm crumbling it up to make sure the margarine, just cheap old country crop margarine, is the only thing that I'm using. Now, normally I make my biscuits using white lily, self-rising flour. And I do have a video on my channel where you can look at and see how I did that as well. I don't promote anybody, so use any kind of flour you want to use. Okay, so that's how that's looking. All-purpose flour is generally used to make cookies, cakes, anything you want to make. But you do have to use that ingredient. You do have to use your baking powder in order for it to rise. You guys cook this evening or know how to make biscuits at all? Yes, I see Bubba on here. I'm cooking old-fashioned homemade biscuits out of all-purpose flour, Bubba. And this flour actually takes on a whole different look from your self-rising flour. And it looks a little bit older. So we're going to see if we're going to have a mess here. I'm also going to add, because I'm not using my normal flour, I'm going to add some sour cream. No particular measurement, but because I have 2 heaping cups of flour, I'm going to use an oversized spoon, tablespoon of sour cream, just to make sure that biscuits are fluffy. Again, this is my first time that I've actually made them like this way. So we're going to see. We're going to see together what they're going to end up looking like. Actually, it's starting to look crumbly. The dough is looking a little crumbly. So I'm going to see if I made a mess. First time for everything. You see that? So we're going to see together what this is going to look like, to see if you even want to try it one day. This is my buttermilk that you see me using. It's important to use, don't be skimpy on your buttermilk, regardless of what type of flour you use. Okay. I'm accustomed to my flour being white. You can see that this is taking on a yellow look. Part of it is probably because of the country crock. Okay, you see how doughy that looks? Now I'm gonna go in, see that flour? And just kind of get it to the point where it's pliable, where I can manipulate the flour with my hand, you know, to keep it from sticking all over my fingers. You guys stay tuned for some information concerning your filing your income taxes. I have some good information for that. If you're going to file the old simple way, if you're not going to do any itemizing, or you're just going to file, maybe use the 1040A form or the 1040 form, and you're only going to be maybe filing for earned income credit if you're eligible for it, and child tax credit. It's pretty simple to do on your own, so I'll share those details in another video. Okay, so I've gotten the flour almost to the point where I can pick it up, throw it on the surface. I'm only gonna place it on the surface and cut them out. You can roll them out with your hand if you want to, but I'm gonna just cut them out. See what they're gonna look like. Okay, and it won't take me long. Once I place them in that 400, and you set your oven at 450, between 450 and 475 is what I do. And there are a few people that will set their oven higher, and it depends on how old your oven is and how quickly your oven heats up. So if you know your own oven, you'll know what you need to set the temperature on. The purpose for the higher the temperature, that I'm going to try and push this down so you can see what I'm doing. Shucks. Okay, I'm actually just patting the dough out, and I don't have a biscuit cutter. Let me let you see this, what I'm doing. Okay. You see that dough? You pat them. I'm not going to pat them out very thin because I want them to be tall. I want biscuits to be rather tall. Some people do roll the dough out with a rolling pin or a vinegar bottle or anything that's sturdy. So I'm just patting mine out. And I'll be using a glass to cut them. But if you should use a glass, be careful that you don't cut your hand. So I'm going to leave the dough about 1/2 inch thick. And you see that I'm just rolling it out on top of my counter. So I'll just grab a glass. So this is what I'm actually going to cut them out with. I'm going to turn the camera around so you can see me cutting them. Okay, so I'm going to flour the glass. You see the glass? Just be careful if you decide to use a glass. Just stick the glass in the bag and then just cut the biscuits like this. See that? And so I'm going to put the biscuits in this greased pan, cast iron. Sometimes I cook them in a double baking pans that I've actually doubled so they won't burn. But this time I'm actually going to use the this cast iron pan. And it won't take me very long to see if they're going to rise the way they're supposed to, or if they're going to be a mess. Okay. I'm going to put these biscuits in here where they can actually touch each other. See that? So I don't really need this many biscuits this late in the evening. But being that this is a trial run for me, I'm just going to cook a few and see what happens. So that's 7 biscuits. See there? So now I'm going to place them into the oven that's been preheated at 475. And again, if your oven tends to cook real fast, you may not want to put your oven that high. Or if you have a slow baking oven where it tends to heat up slow, then you can turn it up probably anywhere from 475. I wouldn't suggest 500. I've seen some people put their biscuits on 500. 500 is a little bit too high. And the purpose of the high temperature is so that the biscuits won't dry out while they're cooking. You know, back in the day, they cooked everything at 350. And although my mom's biscuits were delicious, you know, since I learned how to cook them, learned to turn the heat up higher, that's how I've discovered that the biscuits are fluffier the higher you leave the heat. Okay. And so these leftover biscuits here, I'm gonna freeze them. I actually cook biscuits and freeze them. Then when you get ready to cook your breakfast or your supper and you're having biscuits, even if it's biscuits and gravy or just biscuits and whatever, biscuits and chicken, whatever you're cooking. So see these? I'll be placing these in the freezer, and once they freeze, then I'll go back and put them in a freezer bag like these. These are some that I already fixed earlier this week. See that? You don't have to go and pay $5 and $6 or more for frozen biscuits. They hold up very well. When you get ready to cook, you just grab them out of the freezer and cook them. And yes, I made these, but these were made the regular way with white lily flour. If you want to view that video, you can. The only difference is I used self-rising flour, okay? And butter versus margarine this time. So, let me show you what this looks like after I cut the biscuits. Now see, they're rising nice and high. What you do after you cut the biscuits, I go back and I pull all of those ends together. See? Oh, that's me. Oh, gracious. See? All those ends where I cut the biscuits out of, I pull them back together. And then I'm going to go back and cut some more. You just push together, don't overwork your dough. And then I go back and I'll cut. I don't know if you can see through here, but you can see those biscuits rising in the oven. You can see them rising nice and tall. Okay. So I'm going back. I put this dough back together. See that dough? I just pushed it together and I'm going back and I'm cutting the remaining dough. Cut as many biscuits as you can. Again, if you're going to use a glass, be careful not to put too much pressure on the glass so the glass won't break into your hand. And then here's a whole plate of biscuits, and I'll be just placing them in the freezer so they can freeze, and I won't have to cook biscuits every time I get ready to cook supper or breakfast or something. Again, for those of you that are just coming on, Go on to my channel, subscribe to my channel, and look at the video of your choice. Oh gosh. Okay. So guess I reset it, won't follow me again. I'll be ready to show you those biscuits in a minute. It usually only takes 10 minutes or less for the biscuits to cook on 475. Because again, they're going to cook fairly fast. You know, at that temperature. If you feel safer putting your oven on 450, do 450. Make sure your biscuits get done on the inside. Okay, so even after I cut out these 4, I still have some more, probably about 3 more biscuits to cut out and freeze. Okay, that's 2 more. And you see these little bread scraps that I have left. See those little bread scraps? That's gonna make at least 1 more biscuit and a little small one. I just pulled the bread scraps together. Put them together. I could just make 1 big biscuit out of that, but what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna go ahead and cut 1 more biscuit. See that biscuit? And then that little dough-like part right there, it's just gonna be a little tiny biscuit. I could have just made 1 big biscuit. And I think I will go ahead and take that one and make 1 big biscuit out of this. And make 1 big biscuit. The only thing I'm gonna do is take it like this. Make sure you got enough flour on it and rub it and roll it together. Again, you don't have to cut your biscuits with the glass. You can just roll your biscuit with your hand. See that? So that's a roll. That's gonna be a pretty big biscuit there. So meanwhile, that is it. I'm gonna show you what the bread looks like when I pull it out of the oven in just a bit. And actually I have 7 in the oven, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. 21 biscuits that I made that quick. And these are going in the freezer. They'll be frozen as you saw the other bag of biscuits that I made earlier this week. So that you won't have to cook. Thank you. Thank you, Brittany, for subscribing. Thank you so much, guys. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead. I apologize for this tripod jerking, but it's jerking for some reason. So I'm going down in the freezer. Freeze these with them uncovered so they can get nice and hard. They're going in the freezer. Once they get hard, and then I'll bag them up, just like these. You know, and you just got biscuits for days. So it only take probably 20 or 30 minutes for them to get nice and hard. And these biscuits cook very fast on this cast iron pan. And I don't like my biscuits very brown, So you can see they're ready this quick. You see that? Look. Look how nice and fluffy they are. And they cook less than 10 minutes. And again, mostly because the oven is on 475. I did turn it down to 450 because it seemed like they were cooking a little bit too fast. And mostly because of the cast iron pan. The cast iron pan holds a lot of heat. So they'll cook faster than they would cook on your regular baking sheet. So I would say whenever I'm going to use the regular baking sheet, to just keep it on like 450. That's high enough for that cast iron pan. But that cast iron pan is really hot. And what I'll do, because even though I've taken the biscuits out of the oven, they are still cooking. Because that pan is, I mean, extremely hot. Look at that. Look how good they look. You see? And see how fast that was? The video has been 27 minutes long. And so you see how quick they got done. So they would not rise if you didn't put this baking powder. You have to use baking powder in all-purpose flour. You don't need baking powder in self-rising flour, which is what I normally use. Okay, so just keep that in mind. The all-purpose flour actually is a little cheaper than a self-rising flour because you have to go in with a tablespoon for every cup. Some people may do just a teaspoon, but I use a heaping size tablespoon for each cup because I used heaping size cups to make sure I had enough. And this is a 12 pound bag of gold medal flour. And it's so big I can barely pick it up. You see? I'm not advertising for gold medal. It just happened to be what I saw on sale in Sam's Club today. $6.72 for a 12-pound bag. But they didn't have self-rising flour. They had only this all-purpose flour. So the only thing you have to do if you forget how much baking powder to add per cup, just Google it. I'll pull it up on YouTube somewhere. I'll go back to my channel and you'll hear me mention it. You know. And that's it. I'll be taking my biscuits. You can actually butter your biscuits if you want butter biscuits. You could come back and just melt you some real butter. Or again, it could be margarine, and butter the top of your biscuits with a butter brush. Yeah. And again, I made these biscuits with regular old margarine and buttermilk. But you can use any type of shortening, grease, butter, whatever you want to use. You don't have to use what you saw me use. But the steps for making these nice fluffy biscuits is pretty much the same. Yeah, regardless of what you choose to make your biscuits with. If you want them nice and fluffy and tall, you put syrup, molasses on them. You see that? Don't that look scrumptious? Look at that. I think I'm gonna pour some molasses, homemade molasses out, and look, you ever heard that old word, sop? Mop, whatever you want to say, to just soak up the molasses on the bread, or you can use the Jell-O, whatever you want to use. But that's it. I won't hold you any longer. Again, subscribe to my channel if you haven't. I appreciate those of you that already did it. And just go and check the channel out. Turn on your notification bell so you'll know when I'm going to come on with the income tax information. And, other information that will be helpful to you guys. Okay? Meanwhile, have a great rest of your day. Stay warm. It is very cold here in North Carolina. I noticed that it's even colder in other places. And take care until I see you next time. Have a great evening.